free, Skaro!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 839. I am Steven at Gallifrey One,
and I am Paul at Gallifrey One.
Yeah, no apologies for the noise in the background of the pool.
It's
the
part of the
airplanes.
ambiance. We just got to talk louder.
It is. We're pretty much recording all these episodes outside this year because of COVID and because it's fun. Later on in this episode, you'll hear Rob Ritchie of the Doctor Who DVD range. Lying on the grass in the sun, talking about his work and stuff. Yeah,
amazing.
Why
is he lying in the grass and we're here on the California concrete?
Well, because it's the late afternoon now, and it's not as cool, sunny for one. It was great. I don't know. In all my years of coming here, Paul, I don't know why I didn't think about doing interviews outside on the grass. Because it is a wonderfully relaxing atmosphere.
You know, I wonder, we've been spending the past 2 years inside for, a huge part of our life, and the outside has become so inviting in some ways. And I was talking about this earlier. There's something about the air. Like, the air just feels different here. I can't describe it.
You mean warmer?
Maybe that's it. Warmer, brighter.
Because let me tell you, it's not as warm and brighter as this in Edmonton back right now.
No. And in Chicago, it's gray. We left right before a big ice storm, so it's gray and nasty. So there's something just wonderful about being out here, and I'm so pleased to join you.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased for you to be here. I always like talking with you at Chicago TARDIS, and here, I believe, a few years ago.
We've done it. We've done this here, and we've done some at TARDIS, yeah.
Yeah, How has your impression of the convention been with COVID and all that, and with it being, like, for a lot of people, the first big outing that they've had in 2 years, essentially?
It's been actually fabulous. I think everyone has been treating the mask wearing really well. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen anyone slip except for one or two guests. And everyone just is in great spirits. I think people are happy to be here.
Yeah,
it does feel, and I was commenting on this a little earlier with some folks, and someone said that the energy to be an extrovert is just increased because of the mask. Mm-hmm. You know, so for folks, I'm not an extrovert myself, and so for folks who. It takes a little bit of extra energy to be social.
Yeah.
It takes just a little bit extra. That gentleman has no problem with his extroversion. But everyone is in such great spirits. I think everyone is just so happy to be here and happy to be back.
Yeah, I found my throat is a little like. First of all, everything in the last 2 years, be it a sneeze, be it a slightly scratchy throat, be it whatever, you think. It's COVID.
Yeah.
But I'm finding that I am having to project, shall we say, while wearing the mask to be heard in the lobby. But apart from that, it's like you wear a mask, you might sneak a water bottle underneath, you might sort of move it away, take a drink, and put it back on.
Yeah.
Apart from that, it's really kind of status quo.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was expecting. I think I brought like this mic stand that I'm talking to, which I'm using mostly because I'm lazy. I bought because I thought I would have to stand outside, separated by like 6 feet. The guests would talk on here. It would be very formalized and stuff. And I don't think that's necessary. I think we're all sort of in the same place, that we're all sort of being careful, and we've all been vaxxed and everything else.
That's the thing. I think because everyone had to be vaxxed,
yeah.
I feel a lot more comfortable.
Me too.
And DePaul University, where I work, has done the same thing. We're back in person, and we have been this whole year, but they're requiring vaccines, and they're requiring masks. So I'm used to teaching in a mask. I don't love it, but I'm used to it.
Yeah.
And projecting in a mask. But it does feel more comfortable when there are those slips and there are those, the occasional person who's forgotten their mask or whatever. You're like, it's okay. Everyone's been vaxxed. Everyone,
right.
We've believe in science. We're Doctor Who fans.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. I think that we do. Doctor Who fans are a group of people who largely not only believe in science, but also believe in helping your fellow human beings. That's part of the ethos of the show.
Yeah.
And so getting vaxxed, wearing a mask, it's not just about protecting ourselves. It's about protecting people who are immunocompromised or people who can't be here. So that's part of it too.
Yeah, there's a great sense of community, and like, you know, nobody wants to be the person to let it slip, to be the one to ruin it, basically, you know?
Yeah, can you imagine?
Yeah.
Can you imagine being the one who, and watch me eat my words in 2 weeks' time, but being the one who's like patient zero.
Right.
Prisoner zero of Gallifrey One, 2022.
Yeah, I mean, well, they have like free PCR and rapid tests on site. We got ours because we had to, it's good for 48 to 72 hours. No, 72 hours before our flight back to Canada that we require one. And the results were going to be 48 to 72 hours. So we sort of had to like time it. Like, we better get it now because we have to wait 48 to 72 hours. We might miss our flight. They arrived like in 6 hours later, and it was negative, obviously.
Yeah.
And it was like, this feels great. I feel like, you know what, I've done my bit. I survived LobbyCon, which was, fairly robust on the Thursday night. And, because of the precautions and everything else that we did, it's still fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we were in the bar last night, it's always a bit shaky because people are taking their masks off to eat and drink.
Yeah.
And when there's a mass of people not wearing masks, it suddenly feels a little bit better. Not better. It feels more comfortable to not wear a mask.
Right.
Like I'm fitting in. So there's always, and then when you're drinking, there's always, the little devil says is a little bit louder.
Right.
But even then, people were still putting them on to leave.
Yeah.
I was really so happy.
It was nice. I've been pretty careful. I did the whole live show on Friday with the mask on. We sort of agreed afterwards for the commentaries. I think, have we taken these things off? We've all been vaxxed. Okay, yeah, why not? It's just easier sometimes when you're looking right directly at someone. The guest preference essentially is what I've been doing. But no, it's weird how quickly this slipped back into normal.
Yeah. And even with the photographs, they've got the partition up for the photos. It blends in really well. You can't tell on a lot of the photos. And the guests are being very gregarious. They're some of them are staying behind, and you respect that. Sacha Dhawan came out and was giving everyone hugs. And I'm like, all right, if he's comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So, I think it's about recognizing where other people's boundaries are and respecting that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were involved in the TARDIS Talks again this year. How did that go down?
It was fantastic. Mm-hmm. It was a bit more muted than it has been in the past. So for a couple of reasons, my amazing co-chair, Joy Piedmont, who just does the lion's share of the work and is so great in front of everyone, and I take notes on how she does it, and just so I become better next year. And then she's better than me next year, and I'm like, God damn it, Joy, I got to catch up again. She wasn't here, sadly. She decided not to come this year. And then we had originally planned a keynote and I think 6 talks. And the keynote and two of those talks dropped out. For totally fair, no hard feelings at all. Mm-hmm. And that left 4 amazing talks.
Right.
And Sean condensed our panel down to an hour. So as people talk, they always go a little bit longer than you had expected. So there wasn't as much time for question and answer as there has been in the past. But I thought the talks were great, and they ranged from such interesting topics. We had someone talking about how come all the monsters in Doctor Who are uniform. And the all the humans are very different from each other, and what is it about that is so scary? And it's about seeing the other reflected, right? And the other is always a characteristic of the self, and that gets highlighted in our enemies. And then the next, that was Tom Rodabaugh talked about that. And then Gareth Fisher talked about the kind of Buddhism in Doctor Who, and the not just the actual Buddhism moments, right? Because Barry Letts integrated Buddhism in the show, and the Mara is an actual character in Buddhist mythology. But kind of what are some of the other Buddhist elements? I thought those papers were great. There was a paper done by some library researchers talking about how research happens in Doctor Who and how do people do research.
Right.
And then our final presentation was about how Series 12 of the Chris Chibnall era really matches up to British imperialist literature. And they were making a one-to-one connection between, and this episode was about Frankenstein, and this episode was about Gilgamesh, and how does that kind of translate to kind of the imperialism in the canon? So it was absolutely a fascinating bunch of papers.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm glad that you were able to not necessarily cobble something together in a different year, but to actually have some standout stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't say cobbled together at all, really.
Yeah.
I mean, this was it. When we had 6 papers in a keynote, we actually, Joy and I had themed them so that the first hour was going to be kind of focused on that sense of otherness, and the second hour was going to be focused on kind of different areas of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And so we did have to kind of smush things together just to fit it in the hour. But man, I think everyone gelled really well. The talks were referencing each other. The slides were great. The audience was really engaged. So it was great.
That's awesome. I'm not even sure this picks up, but there is chatter happening in the pool. It's been a while since we've had a poolside room. We were lucky to get it just because I wanted this as the recording space.
Well, this gives your listeners, the ones that can't be at Galley,
Right.
this gives them a sense of what Galley is like. This wonderful screaming back and forth.
Back and forth in the background.
There's a conversation going on about Doctor Who, and then there's fans yelling back and forth, and there's people cosplaying, and there was a mermaid in the pool.
Yeah.
And there's signs up there's a Kerblam sign in the window. The ambiance of the place, just there's people doing their laundry. It just it really brings home that we are a family here.
Yeah, it is. And just how quickly we've just sort of, I don't know, settled into it. It's so. I was not expecting to be this comfortable this quickly about being back in the world. I know a lot of the people who couldn't be here this year were kind of going from nothing to 2,000 people in a hotel at the same time was pretty overwhelming, and I 100% understand that.
Yeah.
I suppose you and I have sort of existed in the outside world a little bit more in our professions.
Kind of had to,
with masks and everything, so it feels like, I'm not, I worked in the NHL bubble in 2020, before vaccines, and there was the entire NHL was in Edmonton at that time, and we were all wandering around with masks and everything, and we didn't get a single COVID case at all in 2.5 months. And maybe that sort of grounded me in saying, you know what, this is kind of okay. Omicron kind of shook me a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of, I really sort of buttoned down and didn't go anywhere leading up to this because I didn't want to miss this.
Yeah. I did. I tried to limit myself before coming here. I did a couple of tests before coming here as well, just to be on the safe side. But teaching since August in person, I felt kind of safe, and as we were saying, and I mean, all the science really honestly points to, if you wear a mask, and even before the vaccines, if you wear a mask, you're not 100% safe, but you're largely safe.
Very safe.
With the vaccine and a mask, it's so few cases actually get through. It's the people who aren't vaxxed, the people who aren't wearing masks. But I know I'm preaching to the choir here.
A little bit. No, that's fine. I like that.
But I also have to say, the fact that there are about 1,000 fewer people here.
Yeah.
It does also make it feel a little bit more safe. You can spread out a little bit more.
Yeah.
That last panel that we were in, which was the big panel with Sacha Dhawan,
right,
and Mandip Gill and Joe Martin, was packed.
Right.
That was all the seats were filled, butts in seats.
Was it a little? How was that for you?
It
then?
was, and it did feel a little weird. I mean,
Yeah.
I think everyone was kind of sitting in their own little bubble,
Right.
But we're all, shoulder to shoulder. But that was the first time I'd felt just a little bit like, ooh, this is a little weird.
I mean, it's no different really than a lot. I mean, depending on what you think about like sports venues opening up, but
Yeah.
a lot of places are opened up with full capacity, but also masks are mandatory.
Yeah.
And so, again, as you say, the masking is a ridiculously simple yet very effective way of.
It's really unbelievable how the simplest things work. And my sister is a doctor, and you hear about people who are complaining, I have to wear a mask, and is it uncomfortable? Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But my sister wears a mask to work every day.
Yeah, before
All of
Yeah.
this. And I think about her, and I'm like, if she can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, my job is a lot easier than being a doctor. So
Yeah. What panels did you check out over the past? We're doing this. We're recording this pretty much like minutes before it goes out, everyone. So like this is an up to the minute.
Is it really? When is this going out?
This is going out as soon as we press record. Listen, by the time you go to supper, it'll be out.
Holy cow!
Well, it's all prepared. I prepared it all.
The future is now, Steven.
It is now. So don't even mention anything that you're going to do this evening because it'll be old news.
Oh man, I could mention something I'm going to do at like 9:00, and folks could meet me there.
Yes, technically they could.
Whoa,
We're basically live.
that's amazing.
So 2 days worth of panels, Friday and Saturday. You have to choose from here.
Well, I have to be honest. I mean, the best panel that I've seen, other than the TARDIS Talks,
Right.
obviously, was this last one. I've seen a lot of main stage panels in my many years on the con circuit, and the chemistry and just the sheer joy that Sacha Dhawan, Mandip Gill, and Joe Martin had being up there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Mandip's first Doctor Who convention, I think.
Yeah.
It was Sasha's first.
Definitely.
Doctor
He
Who
never
convention.
went to Comic-Con either.
Right.
So this is...
I think he's done like another con somewhere.
Oh, maybe one of those London...
Yeah, like a London Comic-Con.
Right, okay.
Don't quote me on that. Don't find me at 9 p.m. tonight and correct me on that.
Right.
But I seem to remember pictures from it. And Joe Martin, I think this is definitely her first Doctor Who convention.
Yeah.
And they are it was palpable how much they like being with each other and how much they like being with the fans, and that spread throughout the room. Right. It was just a sense of joy in that room, in hearing them talk about their experiences. Matthew's tweet is such a great interviewer anyway. So
yeah.
So that was really an amazing panel. I did see the commentary last night, An Adventure in Space and Time. Magnificent job.
I had such a blast doing that.
Magnificent. I mean, how can you watch that? Every time I watch it, I tear up.
Well, I desensitized myself by watching it 2 or 3 times over this course of this week, trying to get to. I did not succeed while watching it before. I did luck out, and sort of my emotions were dulled enough during the commentary itself.
Yeah.
But it was you could tell that Matt Strevens was such, this was just a really important thing for him that he did back in 2013.
I show it. We watch it every so often in DePaul Doctor Who Club.
Yep.
And which you joined. One of the nice things about COVID was you were able to join us.
I was joining you on a few occasions.
A couple of times. I want to get you on coming to Club again and talk about your experiences in Radio Free Skaro. Actually,
oh, really?
I'm putting you on the spot on your own podcast.
Okay,
inviting you to come and just talk to the kids about.
What will they care about some old nerd in Canada who has a Doctor Who podcast? Honestly,
have you met DePaul Doctor Who Club? I've been sending them pictures of the convention, and they've been loving it.
Awesome.
And then they send me tweets of other people taking photographs of the same thing that I'm taking photographs of, which is bizarre. They haven't sent me a photograph of me, which I'm glad about. But panel, so that we've watched An Adventure in Space and Time in Club, and I always cry at the end when Matt Smith shows up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's such a, in a completely realist show, which is trying so hard for verisimilitude, to then have this magical realist moment.
Right.
It hits me. It just really hits me. I'm getting emotional talking about it now.
I remember the audible gasp that I did on November 21st, 2013 when I saw that, because all the emotions that were building up about the celebration of the 50th, about this show that has made my life what it is, and all of a sudden I saw that, and just with that look, it's
the smile.
It connected the line from 63 to 2013 just perfectly, more so than any out of body experience. Well, having the ghost of future or Christmas future, that's what it is, show up and explain to William Hartnell that here are the great things that you're going to do. We knew what that look meant.
And and he just it's just such a beautiful. I feel like we could just redo the commentary. The other, I saw a great panel last night. Paul Cornell always does great panels, but the death match was great.
Yeah, between what were they doing? It was
villains, and it was who was best on screen, and then who would win in a fight.
Right.
Sadly, I left that panel before the end, so I actually don't know who the eventual winner was.
It was Daleks.
I could have guessed. Let's be honest.
They did eventually win.
They always do. But there were some good matchups. I enjoyed that a lot. And then I spent a bunch of time in line yesterday, and I realized something. I'm going to get a little emotional and introspective here.
Right.
Cons, I think, are best when you are able to, at least for me, balance things.
Mm-hmm.
I love autographs, I love photographs, but I OD'd a bit on that yesterday. There was a little bit too much just standing in line, and I felt life passing me by.
Right.
And then today...
Quite literally, with everyone walking around you in the hall.
Quite literally. And then today... it was a much more balanced day. We did some autographs in the morning and a photograph in the afternoon, and then a couple of panels, and I just feel healthier.
Right.
So I feel like that's a good life lesson.
It's a mix of things that you
gotta mix it up. You can't do all panels.
Yeah.
Because then you just get overwhelmed with social stuff. You can't do all standing in line, because then you just feel like you're missing out.
Yeah.
It's got to be a mix.
I know. I don't do the autograph panels or that. I feel like I'm kind of... I have a bit of a privilege at this, being sort of like, I got the live show, and then, I have the podcast, and I go around, and basically I get to have my own personal panel with some of these people because they agree to do it, and I always feel guilty. I would never want to sort of like get in line and steal someone else's spot in line when this is something I could probably do on my own for the podcast if I wanted to. Yeah,
you are in somewhat of a privileged position.
It is,
and I should say it doesn't come with very many perks.
Right.
But one of those perks is you do get to spend time with the guests privately.
Yeah.
And I know for you that is one of the things you really enjoy.
I do enjoy it. I said to Sean before all this, because I knew that some of the people who weren't able to attend were sort of like part of his regular stable of interviewers, and I've done interviews for him in the past, of course. I'm very happy to, and I said, like, put me on however many you need, because it's not easy putting a convention together in a pandemic, especially when you're having guests getting cold feet about COVID and not coming, and attendees who are actively involved in it. And so I thought, I'm not going to be the thing that sort of adds to the headache.
Yeah.
I'll do my best, whatever you need to help. I'm exhausted because I had to get up this morning. Got to get up, actually, for a 9:45 commentary with Jonathan Watson for War of the Sontarans. It was great, but I was up until very late, and I haven't recovered yet.
That's the other thing. As I've gotten older, I'm less able to stay up late doing LobbyCon stuff. I'm never really good at it anyway.
Right.
I'm too much of a wallflower. But 10 o'clock comes, 10:30, and I'm yawning, and I'm like, oh man. Because also there's a time change, there's a jet lag, but I also just I lose energy. It saps out of me because I give so much energy during the day. I don't know how you do it. You're up early doing these panels, and then you're at LobbyCon until like 1 or 2 in the morning. I don't get it.
Well,
are you on speed? That is my question.
I'm not on speed. I live on a diet of Pringles and protein bars.
Pringles and protein bars was actually my band name.
I was just going to say, there's so many. I was going to say deleted Elton John track from...
title of my sex tape.
So I don't. If it's in short bursts, every time the Sunday comes around, I go. If this was a 4-day convention instead of a 3-day, no, I wouldn't be able to do this. But it's 3 days. I think, you know what? I can do this for 3 days. For 3 days, I'll do it, and then I'll sleep on the plane. Essentially, is how it goes. Mm-hmm. I am feeling it a little bit this morning and today. Like I haven't quite caught up on the sleep.
And I wonder if part of that is also just it's been 2 years, so we've the energy level,
Yeah.
It's hard to get that back.
Oh no, I feel like I'm almost like overcompensating.
Really?
I've missed this for 2 years.
Oh yeah,
and I kind of like I've had it in excess. Let's go. Let's use up this energy. I've never spoken to people. Well, I have at work and stuff like that, but I didn't think I'd miss socializing as much as I did, and so I've enjoyed that aspect of this weekend.
Well, you're very good at it.
Well.
It's a talent. It is a talent that you have.
Having a podcast is a way in to these conversations, and then I find that I like to ask people questions so that I don't have to talk and carry the conversation.
That is a good philosophy.
It's a very easy way to keep conversations going without actually having to do anything.
Do you find that when you're asking guests, I sometimes do interviews at Chicago TARDIS.
Yes.
And so when I try and do a little bit of research beforehand so that I'm not just asking the same questions that they've gotten a million times before.
Yeah, absolutely.
But do you ever find that sometimes the guests will try and revert back to because it's comfortable for them?
A little bit. And it's tough to... I know that like Sylvester McCoy kind of veered back into anecdote mode for the live show. But I do also realize like we've only got like 15 minutes for the segment, and I can't. The live show is a weird thing, just because you got little mini segments, and you get them on so you can get them off the stage in a timely fashion. But I sometimes they sort of veer into that because that's sort of what they're used to, and maybe oftentimes like I know Wendy Padbury was basically repeating anecdotes that she had been told happened, because she couldn't remember it in the first place. So that she was basically just repeating stories.
She's repeating Frasier's memories.
More or less, because why wouldn't you?
I mean, it's honestly...
It's a long time ago.
50 plus years ago.
Yeah.
And it was a year of her life, year and a bit of her life.
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember things I did last year. And so I find it amazing that the guests remember new things anyway.
It's astounding. Like when I think of all the Gallifrey Ones I've been to, and after the first year, it sort of becomes a blur.
Yeah.
I remember the first one. A lot of people remember that first one, and then they, everything after that is kind of like, was it this year or that? And so I can understand why, like, people might remember their first Doctor Who story.
Yeah.
But then when you get to the Space Pirates, and there's no visuals to sort of like refresh your memory or anything, like, if you were to ask Fraser Hines about the Space Pirates, he'd probably just repeat, fan myths about them, because who knows anything about the Space Pirates?
Did you bring up the Space Pirates deliberately?
I didn't, oddly enough, but I do know.
You know how I feel about the Space Pirates?
Well, so this is great, because you are going on the same journey.
Yeah, I'm going on the journey because of you, actually.
Is it? Okay.
I saw you tweeted about it, and I thought, what a great idea. And it was in the middle of COVID lockdown, and I'm like, man, I could spend half an hour a day doing this. And but
listener Joe, who I met at the convention, he's great. He emailed me sometime in last year, leading up to the 60th anniversary. He said, if you start around this time, you can watch all of Doctor Who properties and end roughly at about November 23rd, 2023, the 60th anniversary. Or you could just do the Doctor Who episodes. I said, you know what? I've already done the pilgrimage a few times. We're already doing it with Lazy Doctor Who. Yeah, let's do another one. And so I said, I'm going to start on June 20th. Let's watch one episode a day of Doctor Who leading up to the 60th anniversary, give or take. We foolishly anticipated there'd be 2 more Jodie Whittaker seasons, and of course there won't be. There'll be 1, so there's a few days grace in there now.
Well, and I figured that the days of grace are actually also there in case you I miss one or something happens.
Well, I front loaded the Space Pirates. I finished the Space Pirates. Usually we'd be doing it about now, and then we'd be starting the War Games. But I didn't want to have to be beholden to watching a half-hour Doctor Who episode every night while we're at the convention. So I sort of put pause, and then I'll catch up on the War Games later.
I'm enjoying starting the War Games I do it because. As we were talking about before the podcast started, my body is waking me up at 5 a.m.
Yeah, that's
which
ridiculous.
Also may be why I can't handle LobbyCon this year. And so I find, convention stuff doesn't start till 10. I've got 5 hours in the morning where I'm not sleeping.
Right.
And it's not insomnia. I'm just awake. So I do the crossword and I watch my Doctor Who for the day.
Right.
I read a little bit. I read the newspaper. It's actually really nice and relaxing. It's like a vacation.
It's my end of the night thing.
Yeah.
Is where I watch it. And I have to admit, I mostly watch it so that we don't do this for Lazy Doctor Who. I like to watch it with the info text on because I love to learn about Doctor Who. And I've watched it before, but I just like refreshing the memory. So
I have done a couple of them with the info text. Yeah. The ones that I have seen a lot. There are a couple of episodes because I teach that Doctor Who class. There are a couple of episodes of every Doctor that I have seen every year. Once or twice, and then Doctor Who Club we watch things too. So there are some episodes I've seen way more than others, and some that I haven't seen since I bought the DVD 10 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. So some of them I'm like, I'd forgotten this episode, and oh my god, I was so surprised at how much I loved the Ice Warriors.
Interesting.
Which I remember watching when I got the DVD with the animation, and I watched it all in one big go, one gulp of Ice Warrior.
Right.
And I was like, it was all right. But watching them one by one has this amazing effect of like, you see the story building. You see them working through some of their problems, some of the issues going on, but you also get really caught up in the characters, and these characters have growth. And we don't. I mean, as Doctor Who fans, we talk about it and we see it when we watch the episodes. But one a day brings it home, and you really see it happen.
It does.
I thought that with the Enemy of the World,
right?
Just unbelievable character work from everyone in there over this span of episodes, and also the minor characters, the ones that they just bring in. When you watch it all in one big chunk, it's easy to forget that they are there as well.
It's kind of like binge watching. I feel like you kind of miss something when you binge watch a show. And kind of that's what we've been doing when we watch a 6-part Doctor Who story in one sitting. Yeah. It's just sort of a binge watch, and we complain about how bloated it is. But really, when you watch it in 25-minute segments, it's not. It's not as bloated as you think, except the Space Pirates. And then, but you do get these wonderful characters. We just finished Seeds of Death. Yep. And Kelly. I was so taken with Kelly, the female lead operations manager of TMAT,
TMAT, a powerful woman in this role. As this character, men talk down to her, she talks back. Yeah. She survives to the end. Yeah. She has the plan that saves them at the end. I had completely forgotten all of that because when I binged it, I was so focused on the plot and will they get this, like how are they going to defeat the foam party, right? But like taking your time with it, you really get to savor all of these wonderful characters. Yeah, I've been enjoying it. I like how when I end one episode, I look forward to the next, and I have to stop. I said, nope, you're not watching 2 tonight. Yeah, you're watching 1. Have there been any surprises for you? I mean, unlike you, who sometimes haven't watched it in 10 years when you bought the DVD, because of Lazy Doctor Who, where Eric and I have been watching them all, and we really paid attention. Like, I found with watching Lazy Doctor Who, knowing that there was someone there with me who we were going to do a podcast about it with immediately afterwards, focused me a lot more than I perhaps normally would watching a Doctor Who. Because sometimes, I've watched this a few times, I'll sort of move off and stuff, and, and so, as I said, they've surprised me a little bit. Some of them are just sort of, okay, this is all right.
none leap to mind, but I do enjoy learning more about things. Like I've said this on this podcast maybe last week, I don't remember, but we spoke just before recording about Get Back.
Yeah. And
how I mentioned once that when the last day of Get Back with Paul McCartney doing on the piano stuff, like the day they shot all that was January 31st, 1969, the day after the rooftop concert. That exact day in history over at the BBC, they were wiping 100 original videotape masters of Doctor Who. At that same time over in Lime Grove, they were recording episode 5 of The Seeds of Death. All this happened at the exact same time in London.
See, that is the kind of amazing cultural context that is so delicious to learn.
Right. You know, you forget that the Beatles were a thing. The Beatles were on the verge of breaking up when Doctor Who was being made. There's a lot, the Space Pirates sort of like focuses on space travel and stuff because the Apollo missions were very much in the news.
They were going on,
sometimes it would be kind of intriguing if the DVDs had a nightly newscast or something along with it, just so you got a taste of what else is happening in the world.
In the realm of Doctor Who being released and being sold, there's a market for that. Like what was happening this day? Yeah, could be a DVD set or a download, right? Yeah. That it can't. It must be in the BBC archives. All someone has to do is pull it out.
Pull it out. I'm sure there's rights clearances, but. What is interesting, because we often sort of like take Doctor Who from the past and just bring it to the present day and assign all of our morals and expectations on an archive piece of media. And I think, like we look at things like The Abominable Snowmen, where there are no Asian actors playing Asian characters, or The Talons of Wang Chiang, of course. But when you look at it in the context of all other programs at the time, this was the standard practice. Yeah. It's abominable, obviously, now, but it's fascinating to see where we were as a culture and as a society, where we deemed this to be fine. We never even asked if this was a bad thing to be doing. And so whenever that sort of happens, you go, we all like sort of, imagine if Marco Polo came back. That would just be just amazing. They realize, wait a second, there's a lot of white people made up to be looking like Chinese. And so if, seeing that in context, and when I watch other archive shows and they're doing the exact same thing, I think the disappointment is in us, and that we'd hoped that Doctor Who perhaps would be the thing that bucked the trend at the time, and it doesn't. Yeah,
and I think that's something I actually encourage my students to do in class. Is we watch the episode and I say you look at it, read it through your lens today, but also think about what life was back in 1963, and how would you view that as someone? And it's very hard to do that, especially for an 18-year-old who's not there. It's also about whose culture are we talking about? The BBC obviously didn't have a problem with the yellow face in all of those episodes. But it's not like there weren't people talking about that at the time, right? Yeah. It wasn't like there weren't people who were like, this is racist, we shouldn't do it. Yeah. It's just that wasn't heard by the very male, very white BBC production department. Yeah. It wasn't on their radar in the way it would totally be on people's radar today. And so I always challenge my students, what are the things that aren't on the radar today? Yeah. That media should be looking at? Like, what are people saying that in online, on social media, on TikTok, on all these places where they're critiquing things in our culture, but the mainstream media aren't listening to it? Because we're going to look back in 50 years at the media today and be like, man, I can't believe they were X or Y. I can't believe they were making these fat phobic jokes or whatever. Oh, I know.
Like if you watch like any sitcom, like from pre-2008, they're all like gay jokes that would be just like, we wouldn't make these at all.
And that's not that long
ago. They're in HD,
I mean, like, it's really astounding how much has changed in the past 10 years. Yeah. And how much is left to change. Yeah. I think, we're at this big panel that just happened with Sasha and Mandip and Joe. You're looking up there like, here are 3 actors of color who are the new face of Doctor Who.
Right.
And then you're like, those are the three. You know, I guess Tosin wasn't here.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can say that there are three is great.
Yeah.
3 or 4. But then, you know, that's still only 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's still not equal representation.
No. I mean, it is it is one thing to celebrate where we are now. It is sort of tough to say, why did it take so long?
Yes.
But that's not to diminish
it's
the
not to diminish the
accomplishments of what we've done.
The beautiful thing is we can hold both of those views in our head at the same time. We could be very proud of what has happened and where we are. And we can also say, we're not there yet.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a long and hard struggle, I guess. Yeah.
Like the long and hard struggle to get through the space pirates. Oh, my God.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
We did. No, I did it. I finally accomplished the end of the space. I did not. Here's the other thing.
Right.
I remember listening to the Space Pirates for the first time a couple of years ago, all in one big gulp.
Shouldn't
and
have
I was like, no, it was fine.
Oh, really?
Back then, I was like, yeah, it was all right. It was 2 hours. I think I probably spaced out. I was driving somewhere. Listening to 25 minutes of that episode every day. I don't know why I hated it so much.
I don't know why either.
I don't know why. It's not actually that bad.
Reappraise it. When we build up to the 70th anniversary, you'll
we
do this again, and you watch it, and you go, you know what? This time around, I'm going to really pay attention.
Space Pirates apologists, please find me at 9 p.m. and correct me on what there is to love about that episode. Robert Holmes is great. But everyone is allowed one flub. I even like the Crotons.
Right. Everyone loves the Crotons.
The Crotons is great.
Anyway, we'll be back to wrap after this. It's an interview with Doctor Who DVD animator Rob Ritchie. Lying in the Grass is the theme here of Gallifrey One 2022. It's Rob Ritchie enjoying the sun, reclining on the grassy knoll. How are you doing?
I'm brilliant, and I'm just not sure why I've never done any kind of interviews like this before.
This is the most relaxed podcast that you'll find here all weekend. You know, as you ease into unemployment, apparently, because the animating DVD... Which ones have you done? I've lost track. I know you did... the most recent one you did was Evil of the Daleks, but...
I'm credited on all of them since Power.
Are you really?
In some way, so far, because... So the main animations that I've worked on in terms of animating and compositing, it's Power, Shard and Macra, Faceless, Evil. But yes, I mean, I've provided renders for the other team, for Gary, because he asks nicely.
Right.
Of exterior TARDIS stuff, some internal TARDIS stuff. But every one of them has the title sequence that I did the remaster for.
Oh, right, yeah.
So even the Web of Fear use that. So there's a credit. It's quite nice, actually, to have a credit on all of them, even though I've only done some minor things on some of them. But yeah, so Evil was my last one. And, I mean, what a way for me to kind of finish, if we are finished.
Right.
If...
Well, it's been a while. I mean, you were telling me that you finished work on that in what, July?
Yeah, July 21. And there were kind of rumblings around about the time that it was going to be potentially the last one that BBC America were going to do funding for. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I still haven't been told that was the last one. So I haven't a clue what's going on behind closed doors. But we'll find out one way or another. Just if they do manage to secure someone else to front the money to do them. And it would be a shame for them to just completely stop, just because it kind of felt like it was really getting momentum, especially having another team on board to divide up the workload and get things out twice. So before you would have one release a year, and more recently we were getting 2, and that was really special.
They really were cranking them out, and I mean, I suppose you probably don't know that side of things, but like BBC America obviously was the sort of the co-funder, and they would often sort of, you know, air them. They would actually, you know, the reason they were delayed for several months in this country when they came out on DVD is because BBC America was looking for an air date. And then the last one they did, which I think it must have been Evil of the Daleks, they just put it on their streaming service. So I'm wondering was it was that a sign of their lack of or increasing lack of enthusiasm for it, or what?
Again, whoa, again,
Perils of outdoor interviews.
Yeah, ruining our atmosphere. Again, things like this. I was never privy to figures and things like that, and what might have caused BBC America. All I've known is that they've always made the money back. I think.
Right.
I think, but whether or not they made much of a profit on them, I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. And maybe in the current climate, they've just kind of thought it's a safer thing just to not risk an investment in something that might just do okay.
Right.
Which I kind of fail to understand how it's just done okay, because everyone buys the 3 versions that gets released.
We do.
And we're only given an option of either a DVD or a Blu-ray.
Uh-huh.
The Steelbook's out of the question to get a freebie,
right?
And I'm not having that, so I literally will say, okay, well, I'll take the free Blu-ray, and I'll buy the DVD so it matches the rest on the collection. I'll buy the Blu-ray Steelbook because they're amazing and they're really, really nice, and that the value triples overnight,
right?
And that's my future now that I have no animation work, just to sell everything. But no, I mean, I work full time,
right?
Aside from doing these, and. I've always thought it was sensible not to get rid of the day job, because these things, for me, have always felt like they would have some form of shelf life, unless you finished doing all the missing episodes and then moved on to big finish stuff.
Right, do those.
That's the logical step. But yeah, so I mean, I'm sad at the same time, but at the same time, I'm quite happy that I don't have a ridiculous workload anymore.
Because it was getting quite, stressful, like getting Faceless Ones out the door, and then having another project immediately afterwards.
I mean, it was a horrible juggling act, and the only reason I would do it is because it's Doctor Who, and it's. I've said before that when I was a lot younger, I used to try and animate episodes using PowerPoint.
Right.
And when we started learning that in high school, just. I do remember doing the first 3 or 4 minutes of the Macra Terror.
Really?
Just using clip art, because at the time I didn't quite know what the characters would look like. And for me, the pilot of the colony always sounded quite old, and it was the character that I'd picked in the clip art resembled Da Vinci. And years later I would realise just how wrong I was. But
right.
So I've always had this interest to try and do some form of animation for them. And it's been really nice and amazing to get the opportunity to do it, but it's a horrible balance, and the pay is not great, but it's because it's Doctor Who. You would put in all this extra detail that even the producers wouldn't really be expecting.
Right.
But if I'm in charge of building the sets and laying out the props and everything, it's going to be as right as I can try and get it, because even if I'm not getting extra money for it, it's just... I wouldn't be happy unless I tried to do it as close as possible to what would have been at the time.
Because you're a fan, and I would assume it's not fear of wrath from other fans, but fear of wrath from yourself as a fan to yourself.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to look myself in the mirror if I got things horrifically wrong. But yeah, also the threat of torch wielding fans does help to make sure things are right. And I remember some instances, because not everyone on these productions is a hardcore Doctor Who fan. I mean, our producer and director, I think she became a bit more of a Doctor Who fan. But I remember an instance on the Faceless Ones where there was no clear sound on the audio why or how the Doctor would get into this locked room.
Right.
And it was storyboarded in there that he used a sonic screwdriver to get in. Well, yeah. And when I watched that in the animatic, I went, "Oh no, that's not happening." I said, "Well, we can get the sound put in." No. If you introduce the sonic screwdriver this early, you will be hunted down.
It's one thing to put a Sacha Dhawan wanted poster in a Faceless One.
I was wondering how long that would be before that was brought up.
It seemed like you brought it up on a panel yesterday.
Well, I know. I've got myself to blame. I'm both proud of it and wary of the reception of it. I mean, it seemed like a great idea at the time, because before his poster was there, I already had Roger Delgado's there, and I watched the Spyfall go out live, and we had went away for New Year, but I still took my whole editing system away because I was working quite a lot,
Right.
and it was on the desk not that far away from me, and as soon as the episode had aired, I quickly fired up the PC and added in a second poster, and I thought, this will be great, because there was that bit in the episode where he explained that he lived through the 20th century. I went, Gatwick set in 1967, of course this makes sense.
Right.
People will love this. I will be revered.
And what was the reaction like?
Yeah, mixed bag.
Oh.
Mixed bag.
Was it always easier animating Daleks, just because you don't have to worry about appendages and everything else? You can sort of make them slide and...
For the movement part, yeah, but that's just incredibly boring. And we had a bit of discussion about this on Evil. At first, I think that our director and producer, she wanted them to be a bit more robotic.
Mm-hmm.
But you get nothing from that in terms of character, because they're not robots at the end of the day. There is still something alive inside.
Right.
And when a Dalek gets angry, it works really well just to have limbs twitch and the whole body kind of shift and wobble. And I rebuilt the models for this specifically to have better control over the iris on the eye.
Uh-huh.
So when things like the doctor's name is mentioned, the iris goes immediately wide.
Right.
If it's concentrating on something, it goes quite small. And then when there's lots of panic going on, it's just open, close, open, close, open, close.
Right.
And we felt that gave them a lot more character than just having them sort of glide around, not having the limbs move or the head or eye move unless it was necessary. But I think it was the right call in the end, because again, even if you watch any of the live action stuff with any of the Daleks, the operators inside really are very animated, and they make them wooden boxes move a lot.
Yeah. And I suppose that's the trick of animating anything when it comes to these, is that, it's, if you just have a live action shot of someone standing still, it looks fine. But if you just have a shot of an animated character standing still, it just looks like it's a still frame. So how difficult is it to sort of introduce, the random movements that all humans do, and yet have it make it look natural in an animation?
So I discovered some other software that I use, and it probably is just an obvious thing in 3D software, but if you hit play on your scene file and you see the little timer on the bottom just moving along,
right,
and you haven't put any movement in on the Dalek, but then if you click and hold part of the Dalek with the mouse, while it's playing and move your hand around really quickly,
right,
you translate some of this real hand movement into it.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the Daleks getting frustrated and really angry and they're moving the limbs around was me being really angry because we were up against a deadline and I was massively behind.
Right.
And I was like, come on, we really need to get this finished. And then so any Dalek limb twitching is actually my hand twitching. And when the bodies are moving, twitching, it's the same thing as my hand controlling that. I just let the scene play. And it's a bit like a very primitive motion capture.
Right. Just a hand on a mouse.
Just a hand on a mouse.
So, I mean, obviously you work on one project at a time and you're sort of focused on that, but when you were sort of getting towards the end of Evil, not knowing what the future was, not knowing that there would be no immediate future, did you sort of have any ideas of like future projects that you were looking forward to working on? Or
there's a couple of things. One, I'm kind of trying to develop a bit of a pitch for. It's Doctor Who related, but
right,
not necessarily missing episode related. The other thing would be I have got kind of like a personal bucket list type thing that I would quite like to try and do. I'd love to go back to, because my background, my educational background was in film production, and it's been years, but we used to do shorts. We used to write short films and produce those. So I'd love to get back into writing a bit more, and I would love to get a big finish under the belt at one point. That would be something that I'd really like to do, and it'll be a bit of work to possibly even try and pitch that to someone,
right?
Or even I'll take just doing one of their trailers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of fortunate way because I do have a good day job that I enjoy. I'm not worried about looking for freelance work, and all these are just kind of hobby based things. I mean, if I ever decide to take the plunge and quit the day job, most people in Doctor Who circles will be sick of me being in touch, just going, right, what can I pitch? I mean, we've got the Blu-ray boxes as well.
Yep.
So from time to time, I'll do something for them, whether it be a new effects for a story. And I mean, I made the mistake before of trying to take on Planet of the Daleks to do the new effects for, while working on the animation range. And that it really should have had a lot more time spent on it, and it felt quite rushed, and it's not a one that I'm really happy with. So I would really like to try and pitch to Russell at the Blu-ray box at some point some other stories with potential new effects that I could just solely sit down and concentrate on them. And it's been nice to do things like give Colin Baker an updated title sequence for the Vervoid special edition. Because he was quite a special doctor for me growing up. He was kind of like one of the first ones, and I got to meet him when I was about 9 or 10. And we talk from time to time now, and it's still quite weird that I even have him on WhatsApp. But it's even it's even weirder that I've gave him an updated title sequence that's officially been published. So I in terms of bucket list, I've been doing quite well. And I'm really happy with everything that we've done, and there's all sorts to try and look at down the line. There's still stuff that I could potentially pitch to the Blu-ray boxes, other projects that I've got rolling around up in my mind that need to be fleshed out a bit more. I mean, end goal would always be to try and work on the show or have some sort of do something, even if it's small, on the show, the main show, but I can't even imagine what that would be.
Well, I wish you luck with your ideas for pitching, and I hope that one day you'll be commissioned to do a full animation for the, at that point, 5 missing episodes of Dalek's Master Plan some down the line, whenever some Australian censor board turns up some more missing ones. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I prepped the Dalek model as soon as we finished Evil for Master Plan. So it sat there waiting.
Really?
I think I teased a lot of fans because I randomly put a still image on Twitter of how one would look with a flamethrower if I was doing them. Nothing. I've not done any shots or any clips and stuff like that. But I mean, it might not hurt to start building the models for the sets in case it ever happens, because then I could be like, well, I don't have to stress. Because sod's law, it would be a case of I would turn around and say, yeah, we want to start, and we want to start next week.
Yep. You always have to be prepared.
This is the curse of being a Doctor Who fan, because on the previous releases, when I sort of knew what story we were looking at, even before I've been contracted or agreed a fee, I would go off and start building the sets. Because I know how ridiculous the schedules are, and it's great to have everything ready to go instead of trying to rush everything last minute.
Yeah. It's like checking your work email on a vacation.
Yeah.
At least you know what's coming.
Yeah.
Rob Ritchie, it's been nice sitting in the grass with you.
No,
talking
it's been lovely.
today. Let's enjoy it a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Paul. Thank you very much for joining me, for having your lovely girlfriend sit on the pavement for the past 45 minutes.
Don't make it sound like I told her to do that. She was offered a chair.
Right. I did. You don't know. Well, you do know how much this man talks, and it's great. It's always lovely having you on this show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry I don't get to talk
like
this.
I've missed this
too often, and I miss this.
Yeah,
and we have to do this more often. Just the two of us.
I agree.
I mean, other people can listen in if they want, but
yeah.
But I would like to talk to you more as a human being.
Me too. Where can people find you online?
I tweet a lot. I am doing Twitter updates of this whole Doctor Who watch experience.
Yep.
So I'm on Twitter.
You keep me honest. By the way,
do I keep you honest?
Yeah.
I am on Twitter at pbooth81, and then I'm a DePaul professor, so you can find me on my DePaul website. Just Google Paul Booth DePaul, and I pop up.
Right, with your Doctor Who course,
my Doctor Who course,
which seems still like the dream personified.
Honestly, I think about it, and I'm just so happy and so thankful every day that I get to do this. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, there'll be one more episode from Gallifrey One tomorrow. It'll feature, if all goes to plan, Chip and Erica with me, and an interview with Matthew Sweet, which we also did outside in the cheap grassy knoll of nature in front of the LAX Marriott. So until next time, I am Stephen at Gallifrey One.
I am Paul at Gallifrey One.
So long for now.
You've been listening to Radio Free Skaro. Find us online at radiofreeskaro.com. Follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at Radio Free Skaro. Subscribe to us on iTunes and donate to the show at patreon.com/Radio Free Skaro. Thank you.